Kashitan's fingers trembled as he added a fine blue powder to the alembic. Normally, he wouldn't do this by hand and would just let the process complete on its own. But the potion was needed now, and it needed to be much stronger than his usual fare. It was a risky thing he was doing, and if his measurements were off, this simple potion of healing would level his entire workshop. A lesser alchemist might even take out the entire village. The Dunzinkel are known to be masters of engineering. Their best artisans meld magic and metal seamlessly, and the best of those are lionized above everyone, even kings and queens. It was one such artisan, Kaelmir, who invented what would later be known as the crossbow. His design was based on the great ballista often used in sieges, but cleverly miniaturized with a mixture of exacting fabrication and a gentle touch of essence. Kaelmir's likeness can be found near the hearth of many a Dunzinkel. In the construction of the 4 great divine gateways, they were required exceedingly rare and powerful materials. In a different time, they would have been difficult and dangerous to acquire. But the Harbingers made this almost impossible. In spite of that, the Light Pact sent out teams of hardened veterans to find and retrieve these materials. Those who comprised these teams were specialists in their trade, with strong minds capable of resisting the call of corruption. Most didn't return, but enough of them did. He raced toward the edge, leapt from the cliff, and spoke the words that carried him as a feather upon the wind. His foe, a hardened knight of the Blue Rose, stopped short, surprised by this unexpected turn of events. Divek used his momentum to spin around and let loose a spray of dark ribbons from his scepter. These ribbons were unanchored from reality, having been fate-touched, and had a tendency to confuse the universe about where in space things ought to be. So when they wrapped around the knight, Divek watched him fall to his doom from the safety of the cliffside. Theron was a paladin of the Herald, sworn to take no life, to uphold the creed of his order, and to keep these lands safe. Even with the corruption whispering deep in his mind, he maintained these values with a strength of will girded by devotion to his god. When 3 of the ancients began to terrorize a small village he happened to tarry at, he slew them with his mythical sword Lion's Peace. He did this without hesitation and without mercy. The ancients did not live in the sense that he lived, and so Theron's vow remained unbroken in his estimation. The gods seemed to agree. Deep inside one of the Harbingers, Rikashi was so incredibly still, an observer might have thought her a carved piece of stone. No breath, no fiber of muscle twitching, no strand of hair shifting ever so slightly, not even a heartbeat. She called this technique not being, and it required both physical and mystical mastery. She was surrounded by hundreds of the ancients, but none of those many eyes could see Rikashi, instead sliding over her presence as though it was part of the landscape. She would wait them out. Most cities had at least 1 arena, and some larger cities had 2, even 3. Theater, symphonies, sports, and more could entertain thousands of people on a given night. But the event that drew the largest crowds were the Celestial Games. This was a competition that took place every 7 years, where the best of Vera would participate in 7 different events, testing might, metal, magic, and mind. The winner of these games would be crowned a Celestial Champion, and their name would become known the world over. In this episode, we learn the dangers of alchemy and the creation of the crossbow. We learn that some people were immune to corruption. We learned of the Knights of the Blue Rose and the Paladins of the Herald. We continued to follow the adventures of Rikashi the Black Ember and learned of the Celestial Games. What will we learn next week? Subscribe below. More adventures await.